The estimates of expenditure for the 2019-2020 financial year is now out, and you can view the full document on the Ministry of Finance website at mof.gov.jm. It was laid in the House of Representatives earlier today, following the ceremonial opening of Parliament. The fanfare and parade had a mix of servicemen arrayed in vibrant colors. We have the meaning behind those colors in a few minutes. Plus, simplifying some of the terms and phrases you'll be hearing during this budget period. Also inside the pages, the good, the bad, and the ugly, identifying pests in your backyard garden. This is Jamaica Magazine, and I am Theodore Henry.
If you no want pop down and fenke, you feel burn mosquito and run with dengue. So no make water cycle in open container. For them to read up under the danger. Usher them out, run them away. Slap them with the zapper and down them with spray. Use mosquito net and mosquito screen. Protect your household, now make them come in. If you no want pop down and fenke, if you burn mosquito and run with dengue. If pain lick your head and your joints and your eye, and you want fever vomit and your temperature high, it could be dengue, don't hesitate. See a doctor, don't self-medicate. For some painkiller can make you bleed and you will try to recover and no succeed. We no want pop down and fenke. With a burn mosquito and run with dengue.
A message from the Ministry of Health.
Good day, I'm Stephen McHugh, and this is your JIS News for Thursday, February 14. Effective today, Fayval Williams has assumed full responsibility for the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology, MSET. Prime Minister Andrew Holness announced the promotion yesterday in a press release that revealed other administrative changes. Among them, Permanent Secretary Carol Palmer's reassignment from the Ministry of Justice to Science, Energy and Technology. Other permanent secretary changes include moving Sansia Bennett-Templer to the Ministry of Justice and Audrey Sewell assuming additional assignment at the Office of the Prime Minister. Prime Minister Andrew Holness also reassigned a number of his ministers of state. Floyd Green is moving from Education to the Ministry of Industry, Commerce, Agriculture and Fisheries, while Orlando Terrelong will assume Mr. Green's former portfolio, as he is reassigned from the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport. The changes to ministry oversight takes effect the same day government outlined its policy and legislative agenda for the new parliamentary year, which began with this morning's ceremonial opening of Parliament. The Education Ministry says preparations are far advanced and going smoothly for the February 26 ability test for the Primary Exit Profile, PEP. Portfolio Minister Senator Ruel Reid says the exam will be administered in 1,104 centers across the island, and the ministry is way advanced in having packages dispatched to the different regions.
Teachers are now ready. Teachers are aware that the different components of the test are fully ventilated. They have been active preparing the student by utilizing the material provided by the ministry in Hayden. They have been in preparation for several years. Teachers at the grade 6 level have been trained in assessing the NSC. Quality assurance officers have been deployed to all regions.
41,423 students in public and private schools have been registered for this year's sitting of PEP, with 21,548 of them being boys and 19,875 girls.
I want to encourage all the stakeholders to work diligently with our students, assure them of their confidence and that they will accredit themselves in this assessment. And so it's all about preparing our students much better for this fourth industrial revolution, creating students with critical thinking skills, analytical skills.
Minister Reid was addressing this week's post-cabinet media briefing. In other education news, the ministry has granted approval for institutions that are part of the Brain Builders program to register children as early as 3 years old instead of the current 3 years and 8 months old standard. Minister Ruel Reid made the announcement during his recent contribution to the State of the Nation debate in the Senate.
Those household helpers, those persons on path or minimum wage earners, can go and earn. They don't have to worry about who's going to take care of their children or sacrifice the older siblings to take care of their children, because the state, the caring state, this administration will provide a facility for them to take care and stimulate their children while they go off to do productive activities. We're asking, Mr. President, that our Member of Parliament review and submit to us the school that they would like to become brain builder centers in their constituencies as soon as possible.
Minister Reid said since 2018, 32 of the planned 126 Brain Builder Centers have been established. Under the program, the Early Childhood Commission is responsible for establishing 2 Brain Builder Centers in each constituency to ensure that the nation's children get the best start. Persons who refuse to destroy mosquito breeding sites on their properties are being warned that they could face penalties. Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says the law allows for fines on individuals or business entities that reject warnings to eradicate such areas on their premises.
I believe the time has come, and you have reinforced that, whereas a government, whether this government or any other, we need to enforce the law. Because we're going to have to find all possible ways to create a behavioral change as the most effective weapon to controlling dengue.
The health minister was speaking at a town hall meeting held recently at the Heart Trust NTA's College of Construction Services in Portmore, St. Catherine. He was responding to complaints from vector control workers who report being prevented from accessing premises to carry out mosquito eradication activities. And finally, Sport Minister Olivia Grange says government is making arrangements to provide financial assistance for Kimoy Campbell's care. Kimoy is a Jamaican runner who collapsed during competition in the United States on Saturday and has been hospitalized since the incident.
I will ask the Sports Development Foundation to assist with his immediate needs, and they're on standby to do so.
Minister Grange says Kimoy is registered with the Jamaica Athletes Insurance Program and is able to access benefits under the scheme. She's encouraging other athletes to join the scheme.
The Jamaica Athletes Insurance Plan is there for all athletes. They should be registered through their federation and associations. But if they are not registered through these bodies, then they can make direct contact with my ministry to be on the plan. The plan covers life, health, and accident, and it also covers maternity.
The sport minister says she has reached out to Kimoy's family and will continue to pray for his speedy recovery. And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Stephen McHugh. Thanks for watching.
Do you have a loved one, friend, or client who passed away since 1998? The Electoral Office of Jamaica needs your help to update the voters list with information for these persons, government agencies, churches, insurance companies, hospitals, and funeral homes, and you, the public. We want you to provide us with the records to confirm the status of these persons. Call the EOJ at 888-991-VOTE or visit the nearest EOJ office. For more information, visit our website at ecj.com.jm.
It's now time to find out the meaning behind some of those vibrant colors we saw during the parade of our servicemen.
In ancient societies the world over, colors have been used by armies in battles to symbolize various units or signal a point of reference. This tradition has been passed down in different forms to many generations. In Jamaica, the ceremonial functions of the military partly involve aspects of this color system. A color is the official flag of a military unit. A relic of British traditions, colors form an important part of the ceremonial activities carried out by the Jamaica Defence Force. The Jamaica Defence Force has 3 regiments or divisions, the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Battalion Jamaica Regiments. Each regiment has a specific color assigned to it, along with the Queen's color. The background color for the 1st Battalion is royal blue.
For the 2nd Battalion, that background would be maroon, and for the 3rd Battalion, that background would be green.
The color that resembles the Jamaican flag is known as the Queen's color, symbolizing the monarch as Jamaica's head of state.
The Queen's color is the senior color, and it has on it the St. Edward crown, and it will have the Jamaica Regiment, and in the center you'll have whatsoever battalion that is from, and you're all either 1, 2, or 3. The colors are the pride and joy of the regiment.
Let's take a look at some of the features of the colors for the 1st Battalion Jamaica Regiment. In addition to the royal blue background, the regimental color for the 1st Battalion has gold thread, a wooden pike, a brass tip on the pike, a tassel, and Roman numeral 1. One of its features is the St. Edward's crown, a British crown jewel. Another symbol on the regimental color is the crocodile.
The crocodile is a prominent element in the coat of arms of Jamaica. It's indigenous to Jamaica and represents the strength and aggression required of an armed force.
The motto for the 1st Battalion Jamaica Regiment, Forward, indicates the unit's determination, resilience, and drive for advancement in all things. The floral wreath is also a component of the regimental color of the 1st Battalion. This wreath has 3 plants or flowers: the Tudor rose, shamrock, and the thistle. The Tudor rose, sometimes called the English rose, has 5 petals of pink, red, and white. Its symbolism, the battalion's link with British units of the past. The shamrock, which is an Irish Christian symbol of the Holy Trinity, demonstrates that the unit believes in God and Christian values. The thistle, which has sharp prickles, represents nobility. The 2nd and 3rd Battalions Jamaica Regiment also have wreaths with different plants or flowers.
Whenever the colors move with escorts. With those escorts, they are a conducting warrant officer for the color party, and 2 senior non-commissioned officers that escort the colors, and a color sergeant that stand between both colors when they are in parade.
Now, before the colors are put to use, they have to be consecrated. The Governor General, as a representative of the monarch, usually consecrates and presents the colors to a unit if no royalty is present. And when the colors get old or retired, the Garrison Church of the Ascension at Up Park Camp provides a safe haven.
When it is retired, it is not just thrown away. It is laid up, and that's another parade that is done. In the Jamaica Defense Force, it is in this church that the whole colors are laid up. And that's a whole ceremonial parade by itself, because there are certain procedures that we go by in laying up the colors.
So the next time you see the Jamaica Defense Force carrying out its ceremonial responsibilities, take a look at the colors and remember the profound meanings of the various symbols. It's more than just a piece of cloth. It's the pride and joy of whichever unit it represents.
So we're in the budget season, and during this time, we hear all kinds of big terms, like inflation and net international reserves. But what do they mean? Financial analyst Dennis Chung will be here to break down those terms inside Budget 101. Now let's start with the term budget.
A budget is really just an expectation of what you want to happen. And the reason why you do a budget is because you want to ensure that you are getting the revenues that you expect. So the budget allows you now to create the initiatives around that and also to control the expenses so that you don't spend more than you earn.
Miscellaneous, 5,000. Lunch, 5,000. Wow, my budget's looking good for this month. At least I don't owe anybody.
Well, the government does practically the same thing. This is how the process works. The budget process begins with a budget call being sent out to all ministries, departments, and agencies of the government. Included in this call is a specific figure or what is called a budget ceiling in which they should operate. Cabinet then decides based on their programs if they should get more money. After that, the budget book is prepared and sent to the printing office. The Governor General then makes his throne speech outlining the government's plan, and usually later in the day, the Finance Minister tables the budget in the lower house. The Standing Finance Committee of Parliament will then meet to query the details or make changes to the budget where necessary. That's followed by the various budget presentations in Parliament. When those have been made, the budget is passed and the ministries, departments, and agencies begin to receive their monthly allocations. And that's how the process works. So now that you understand the process, let's move on to the terms. Take, for example, economy.
The economy is really the accumulation of all the activity that takes place from working. So all the activities that is into production or consumption or anything like that, that has a value, that creates a value.
There's also something called GDP deflator, which measures the changes in the overall prices.
All the production in manufacturing, the output that comes from that, all the tourism services, all the value added created in the economy for that year is your gross domestic product. GDP is your production locally. Your economy is all economic activity that happens. So your GDP is really a subset of your economy.
Then there's this one. So if I hear that inflation is going up by 10%?
Inflation is just the movement of prices from one year to the next. Or you can look at it from even 1 month to the next, because we do measure it monthly. It means that on an average, you're paying 10% more than you did before. Now, remember that inflation is just a measurement, an average measurement based on the basket of goods that they measure. The fiscal deficit is really looking at all your revenues and your recurrent expenditure. So you take your revenues, how much money do I earn from taxes, how much money do I get from grants, and then I look at my recurring expenditure and deduct that from my revenue. We've been running a fiscal surplus for a few years now. If your expenditure is greater than your revenues, then that is when you have a fiscal deficit.
Net International Reserves, or NIR, as Dennis Chung puts it, is simply the difference between Jamaica's foreign assets and foreign liabilities.
The Net International Reserve is really, after you look at all the charges that you have against your reserve and all the assets you have in terms of foreign exchange reserve, how much is left in terms of net. What the NIR measures is really how many weeks of imports we can safely have. So I think the standard is about 12 weeks of imports of NIR you want to have. So if you are importing $100 per week, right? You want to know that you have 12 times $100 at least sitting at the BOJ, that if there's an emergency and there's a shutdown of production and there's no value created in the economy for whatever reason at an extreme, at least I have 12 weeks of money there that I can go and buy things from overseas and pay my overseas debts and keep my economy moving. Your macroeconomy is your overall economy. And most times when people talk about economy, they're really talking about the macroeconomy. So how has inflation moved overall? The microeconomy now looks at the economy from the point of view of the individual or the firm. So my economy from a micro point of view might be different from the macro economy.
Recurrent expenditures are expenses that always come on the budget, like wages and salaries. Think of it like your utility bills, water, electricity, or cable. And with that, we conclude Budget 101. I'm sure you've all learned something, and I'll give all of you a passing grade. I'm Theodore Henry. Do take care. In any backyard garden, you will find pests, but not all bugs are bad. The Rural Agricultural Development Authority is promoting healthy backyard gardening and gave us some useful tips, which we'll share with you now.
One of the biggest challenges home gardeners face is controlling pesky insects. So while you may be looking forward to eating your fruits and vegetables when they're ready, you are certainly not the only one. Many types of insects are looking forward to eating them too.
There are many common pests that invade our gardens, such as sucking insects, which suck the fruit as they grow or suck the sap from the stems and leaves. Other types bore holes in the leaves. There are also slugs and snails, nematodes which live in the soil and attack the roots of the plants, and some birds which become nuisances when vegetables get to a mature stage. By preparing the land prior to sowing and spacing your plants so that they are not crowded or shaded, pests won't have the conditions or environment they need to take hold. You may consider integrated pest management (IPM) as an approach to gardening. This method incorporates the use of current comprehensive information on the life cycles of pests and their interaction with the environment. This information, in combination with available pest control methods, is used to manage pest damage by the most economical means and with the least possible hazard to people, property, and the environment. Another key element of IPM is learning to know your insect friends. There are 3 types of insects that are beneficial to home gardeners: parasitoids, which search for pests and lay eggs on or inside them; predators, which catch and eat pests and their eggs; and pathogens, which are bacteria that cause pests to become sick. So, if you see wasps, ladybugs, and spiders in your garden, don't fret, be glad. They are on your side. They are the good guys. And there are certain plants that keep those pesky pests away. The smell of chives and escallion, for instance, is unpleasant for many insects. So by planting these flowers in between your other crops, you can repel those pests.
There's so much that's done to ensure our gardens are pest-free, but sometimes these pests find access points. Master Gardener Rashida Linton will be showing us how to make homemade remedies to combat pests. Alright, how does it go now?
You know, carry on.
Yeah.
For persons who have a little garden at home, instead of going out to purchase those chemicals, you can actually make your own.
Okay.
What you need garlic, onion, pepper, liquid soap, neem leaves, and water, along with your strainer and the containers. Now, what we're going to do, you're going to chop all the items, the onions, the garlic, the pepper.
Okay.
Chop them finely, or blend it in your blender. You're going to add 1 tablespoon of liquid soap to that amount. Pour a little water and allow it to seep overnight.
Okay.
That is all. Then you're going to add this mixture to 1 gallon of water to spray your plants. But remember, only soft-bodied insects such as aphids, whiteflies, or snow scales you should use the homemade pesticides for.
Okay.
When you're spraying, ensure to spray the underside as well as the top side of the leaf. So this is just one homemade remedy.
Okay.
A second one, just simple soap water. What you need to do, you can also add 1 tablespoon of liquid soap to a gallon of water.
Okay.
Shake it, put it in your spray bottle and spray your plants. Or after washing, the same wash soap, as long as there's no bleach in the soap, you can use it to pour onto your plants. So it's very simple. Next, what we can do, these are called neem.
Neem.
Neem. N-E-E-M. Neem.
Okay.
So you're going to take the neem leaves, pour it into your container, add a little water. Allow this to seep overnight.
Okay.
Then you're going to use your strainer, strain it into your container, then add that mixture to a gallon of water and spray your plants as well.
Okay, simple stuff.
They're very simple.
Master Gardener Linton, is there a particular time that you actually spray the plants though?
Yes, since it's organic, we prefer you to spray early in the morning when the wind is relatively low.
Okay, early morning.
Early.
All right, simple stuff.
There are a few other pest control tips and homemade things you can use. Ashes, which can be sprinkled onto the soil to deter slugs and snails. Eggshells, which when crushed and circled around your plant, deter slugs and snails from feasting. These slimy creatures don't like to cross over the sharpness of crushed eggshells. If you don't want to save up all your eggshells, there's another alternative: bear. Yes, bear. Apparently, snails love the sweet, sour and yeasty smell of bear. All you need is a large plastic bottle about 12 inches high. Cut the container in two, about a quarter inch from the top, so that the container is at least 8 inches deep. Dig a hole in the center of your raised bed and set in the container so that the sides are level with the top of the soil. Then, fill the container halfway with bear and leave it. The slugs and snail will be drawn to the bear, drop in, and they won't be able to climb out. They'll drown, but at least they'll drown happy.
By being pest-wise, you'll soon have a lush garden with fruits and vegetables ready for you to pick and eat. But you must remember to pick them at the right time, because if they stay too long, they'll decay. And if you pick them when they're too young, their post-harvest life will be limited.
Excess moisture will cause your crop to decay, so avoid reaping when there is heavy dew and in the rain. If you wash them to get rid of any soil, make sure you dry them thoroughly before putting them away. Refrigeration will help vegetables to last longer as well, but some fruits and vegetables like tomatoes should not be refrigerated. Most root crops like garlic can last for some time outside of the refrigerator. Avoid putting any of your fruits and veggies in plastic bags in the fridge. They need to stay as ventilated as possible. The best way to maximize the quality and nutrition of the vegetables you grow is to cook and eat them as soon as possible after picking.
Food is of utmost importance because it provides the body with nutrients. These nutrients are necessary because they help with the repair, growth, maintenance, and development of our bodies.
So you see, having a backyard garden is a sure way of ensuring you eat properly grown food, save money, and reduce food wastage. Backyard living, not bad at all.
As we close today's show, we ask that you stay connected via our website, jis.gov.jm. And while you're online, send your feedback to Jamaica Magazine at jis.gov.jm or via tweet at JIS News. On behalf of the production crew, I am Theodore Henry. You take care.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.